Do you know why retail is the worst kind of job? It's because you're constantly between a rock and a hard place. You have bosses who say, help customers, but only within these guidelines. And so you do. But when a customer wants something that bends or breaks those guidelines, you either refuse and then the customer gets pissed at you, or you break the rules and your boss gets pissed. No matter what you choose, you're taking the heat. Welcome to what it's like moderating an internet community. I've got a special interview today with a different kind of member in the webcomic community, Webcomic Mod Merari, who has helped one of the biggest spaces for online comics grow past 1 million, 2 million, and as of 2025, 3 million artists, readers, commenters, and lurkers. He's seen things change, dealt with endless situations, and while he often feels like that retail worker in my example, he accepts the responsibility he has to protect artists, their freedom of speech and expression.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
And for this chat, we're going to France. Before he became a moderator for Webcomics on February 21st, 2018, Merari modded for several different subreddits, with some of his oldest including r/animal album covers, which he joined a couple days before New Year's on December 30th, 2018, r/Mitchell and Webb, a subreddit devoted to anything to do with British comedy duo David Mitchell and Robert Webb.
We haven't seen sales like this since the Bible.
And r/The Cure, which he began modding for all the way back in 2015. Like anyone, he has a wide array of interests, and among them, of course, comics.
I think that most of the webcomics I follow actually come from Webcomics, stuff I saw there, stuff I googled. I'm a long-term reader of The Order of the Stick. It's an ongoing story, so it's been years now. Goblins is another one that I've followed for a very long time. There's of course Womp. Those aren't really Webcomics posters. I'm very much a very big fan of The Other End, which is a fantastic comic. When he started posting to Webcomics, I was very, very happy. Hollering Elk is really great. I love Tiff and Eve. Sarah Scribbles is another one. There's a whole lot of great content out there.
Merari's first engagement with Webcomics would come in February 2017, a full year before becoming a mod, when he posted a link to episode 166 of the Pigeon Gazette on Tapas. And in February 2018, he'd get the chance to be more than just a reader. As athletes suited up in Pyeongchang, South Korea for the 2018 Winter Olympics and rising waters in Paris caused a Seine flood alert, Merari was inducted into the Webcomics moderation team alongside Motris, Bluefaced, and Holy Teach. So Merari, how exactly did you become a mod for Webcomics?
I begged for it.
Oh, well, that's one way to get in.
I've been a mod here for almost 7.5 years. A very long time ago, when Reddit was a whole lot smaller than it is now. Mod community was a lot smaller, and we kind of all knew each other. We hung out in the same offsite places like Slacks, then IRC channels. Discord came later, and we talked about moderation, like, oh, you need to take care of this thread on our news, there are a lot of racists in there, and we shared auto mod tips, we talked to admins, all that sort of thing. And there were a few people on the Webcomics subreddit that hung out in these meta spaces, and I kept asking them, hey, I love your subreddit, can I be a mod? Can I please be a mod? Can I please be a mod? And I think I asked 3 times or so before they decided, yeah, let's give him a chance. And that was 7 years ago. That's the old days. It's not really like that anymore because Reddit is now 100 times bigger. The admin team is like 10, 20 times bigger than it used to be. I think that when I started to be a mod, all the people working at Reddit were about as many people as one department is now. So it's really grown a lot. And it's not there isn't really that much of a close-knit mod community of front-paging subreddits anymore. Also because Reddit itself changed and the front page is more or less replaced by someone's personal trending feeds. On a place like Facebook, you are at the mercy of the algorithm, and that shows you what it wants, and based on your own searches and all that. And on Reddit, it's more community centered. There are subreddits that have their own subculture where you can choose to hang out in.
His first order of business after becoming an Webcomic Mod, he's got his priorities straight. Back then, Webcomics wasn't even half the size it is today. It wasn't even a third as big. The subreddit would celebrate 1 million users in November 2018, about 9 months after Merari became a mod, kicking off with a webcomic from MJ Wills, creator of the Swords comic. It was a massive project for Merari to jump into, coordinating tons of artists like Channel Latte, Mr. Lovenstein, Ralph Comics, Portuguese Geese, Alarmingly Bad, Goat to Self, Red Dot, Toothy BJ, and just so many more. Merari's been there through 1 million, 2 million, and now 3 million users. The subreddit has seen an insane amount of growth over his tenure as moderator. He's seen it all. The good and the bad.
The growth is beyond belief. We started planning the 3 million event before we hit 3 million subscribers, and we're now way over. It's amazing. Well, the community itself is more or less the same. It's a fun place to be. It's a place where we deliberately organize things as to facilitate artists as best we can. We are dependent on our artists to post to our comics, and if it were to be a hostile atmosphere for them, they wouldn't want to. So we moderate primarily with the artists in mind. And that means that we're just not going to allow people to be mean. It's one thing to critique a comic. It's another thing to say something like, this is the biggest comic I've ever seen. Because that's not constructive criticism. And, well, that's been a very long-term rule about our safe for work policy, in that it applies to full frontal nudity, excessive gore, or excessive profanity. But now that the subreddit is so much bigger, we're also attracting attention from outside the subreddit, from people who don't really understand our not safe for work policy and who insist that we must tag a post not safe for work just because sex is mentioned or alluded to. And we're not going to do that.
That's just what growth on the internet is. First, the almighty algorithm gods show something to people who will almost certainly like it. Once that group is exhausted, it shows it to people who will probably like it. Once that pond is fished up, it shows it to people who might like it. The further out something is pushed, the bigger it gets, the more likely it'll reach people who just plain hate that kind of thing. And, you know,
fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering.
Well, close, Yoda. It actually leads to shitpost subreddits. Counterculture. Webcomics regulars have been the butt of the joke in communities like r/when the left can't meme. Majority of artists do tend to fall in the bluer side of the political spectrum from what I've seen. And of course, the biggest source of memery here, bone-hurting juice.
There are entire meme cultures off subreddit about us. So now we get commentary like, oh yeah, that's typical for this subreddit. And oh yeah, I wouldn't expect anything else from this. And that's new-ish. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be more close-knit and insular and not attract that much off-subreddit attention. But I suppose that's a part of success. As soon as people like something and as soon as something is run in a way that makes it grow and shown to more people, there is understandable counterculture movement against it, where it becomes popular to hate on something. If you're smart, you play into it. I mean, the old manager of Elvis, he sold both I love Elvis and I hate Elvis buttons because he deliberately played into that counterculture tendency that happens when something becomes really popular. But we can't really do that. And that's something that we still really need to find a way to constructively deal with. We can't very well ban every single person who visits a subreddit where it's popular content to hate on our subreddit, because our own users go there. Our own artists may participate in the fun of making fun of the subreddit. So we need to find constructive ways of dealing with that.
I've seen a fair share of artists engaging with their own bone-hurting juice parodies, and heard prattle about some of the many drama between artists and juicers. And that's not even mentioning discussion from both artists and users about the line between constructive criticism and disingenuous assholery. On the one hand, you can never improve if you're surrounded by yes-men. An artist needs criticism in that regard, and more than a few comic artists have said as much. On the other hand, mods receive tons of false reports from more than a few Our Comics visitors who pop in to go, "This artist might be great." If their comics weren't so gay. The best way to handle this sort of thing, hell if I know. I'm just trying to talk about what happens, not stick my foot in it. There's no stopping the bone hurting.
The juice is loose.
But for the mods, there's no avoiding that kind of conflict. The entire job is trying to satisfy the artists, the users, the site admins, all with their own ideas of what the community should look like. And, well, there's that lose-lose retail worker again.
Well, you have to keep a lot of balls in the air at the same time. You have a lot of, or several, interested parties, so to speak. You have to manage your own mod team. You have to be cognizant of what the admins would like a subreddit to be. You have to take into account what the artists want, and then there are the users. So those are 4 different groups that more or less have to be able to share the room, as it were. So first comes the Reddit site-wide content policy. We just have the obligation to adhere to that. Then you have what the artists choose to post. And then you have what the mods want the subreddit to look like. And finally, of course, if the users just decide that they really hate your space, they won't visit it anymore. If the users decide that you, as a moderator, do something incredibly wrong, then they will revolt. And, we have like 20 mods. And, well, there aren't 3 million active users, but there are a lot. And you need to be able to moderate in a way that people accept. Otherwise, well, you can't win. I mean,
looking at some of the behind-the-scenes stats, in the month of May 2025, Our Comics received 4.6 thousand posts and 83.3 thousand comments, and an estimated 50,000 visitors every single day. That's a lot for just a mod team of 20 people. If you put 50,000 people in a room, ask their opinion on 5,000 different things, do you think they're all gonna nod their heads and agree in perfect unison? Of course not. And it gets even more complicated with site-wide admins keeping a closer eye than usual on bigger subreddits nowadays, wanting to restrict what artists posts and saddling mods with the message. And you might say, why can't they fight back if they disagree with a rule? And you're right, they can. Once. But sacrificing yourself for honor in this case just results in getting replaced with someone much more subservient, which makes the entire situation worse for the entire community.
We basically moderate according to the site-wide policy, and as long as we do that, then there isn't really a chance of the subreddit itself getting in trouble. This, of course, doesn't always gel with what artists want to post. There is such a thing as freedom of expression, and it is a shame that when you're dealing with an online platform like Reddit, you don't really have full freedom of expression like you would have on a public square, because there are things that you can't say and that you can't do, because if you do that, then admins will get annoyed with you and they might suspend your account. And that's something that can be difficult if there is a specific type of comic that someone wants to post and they ask me, hey, would this be okay to post? And I have to say, well, that's probably just over the line where could get your account in trouble. That's not a nice thing to have to say to an artist, because you want them to be artistic and be able to express themselves. It's one thing to deal with angry musketeers or with angry trumplicans. They can be dealt with because you just automate out that so it's never even seen by anyone. But when you deal with the people that actually own the site, yeah, you can't really tell them to bugger off. I mean, you can try, You can probably do it once, but then, yeah.
In the grand scheme of the internet, R-Comics is only a small part of the webcomics community. You've got artists big on Instagram, you've got the madness of Tumblr communities, but the reason I personally like covering the R-Comics side of things is because it's unlike any other nowadays, even across Reddit. I've seen people criticize R-Comics because it kind of defeats the purpose of Reddit's anonymous forum setup. You can read through the entire history of a random subreddit and not recall a single user or if they posted more than once. If you do that on R-Comics, you'll see returning faces like Pizza Cake, Hollering Elk, Maurice Comics, Luck of the Draw, The Red Dot, Gator Days, Tiffany, Bex and Kate, Shen Comics, Columns Comics, Serpex Nessie, A Slice of Alan, FM Squeeze, Portuguese Geese, After Death Comics, Raw Dog Comics. And that's just scratching the very surface. And an unconventional space is, well, unconventional to oversee. And Merari certainly has gathered some unconventional stories. All across the internet, people's accounts get hacked almost regularly. It's always by Bitcoin scammers or a modern hostage situation, which is weird to think about. Give me $5,000 or your Facebook page gets it. But for internet creators, be it YouTube, Instagram, or Reddit, their accounts are their livelihood. So when a very prominent artist on R-Comics got hacked, it was a serious situation. And it's happened more than once to more than one person. Merari told me a story about a situation where an artist received a cyber attack, doxing them and their family and wiping their account. I had checked for myself when it happened. Seeing the usual happy-go-lucky cartoons and comics replaced by empty stats and a blank page felt harrowing, like seeing a place you grew up next to burned to the ground. For most subreddits, if their top poster goes down, well, it sucks, but that's pretty much the end of it. On R-Comics though, people mobilized. The mod team, artists, a whole effort sprang into action to flag down admins to rectify the situation and rescue one of their own. Hours passed, people tried every avenue, and in less than a day, that despondent, broken profile page repopulated with smiling faces and silly gags.
And that's not your typical Reddit experience, that if your top poster gets suspended or hacked, that you then try to contact admins in any way you can. Usually, the best you can do is tell them to do it yourselves, but this is different because the primary moderation policy on our comics is to assist our artists.
Like I said before, R-Comics is a sliver of the webcomics community, but it's one of the most supportive sides I've seen of it. On an internet landscape that's a far cry from what it was 30, 20, even 10 years ago, it's a place where there's still real people. Sure, there's drama, I'm not gonna pretend like it's all sunshine and rainbows. Artists, mods, admins, users, they all disagree, and frequently with very loud opinions. It's no 4chan, but it is still Reddit after all. But while a moderator might not be the face you think of for the R-Comics clan, I know I'll always be glad to have ones fighting for the larger community. So, here's to you, R-Comics. Happy 3 million members.